Assalamu alaikum. Welcome. My name is Juveria Sayed. Welcome to the seventh episode of American Muslims in Public Square by Muslim Educational Trust in Portland, Oregon. Today's episode features wonderful, powerful, strong five women that represent the Muslim community in at large. Today, my co-host is Muhammad Ali Ajuri, who will be actually uh, introducing all of our guest speakers. Mohammed?
Thank you, Sister Joy. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Muhammad Ali Ajuri, and I am one of the volunteers at the Muslim Educational Trust, and I had the pleasure of knowing most of the panelists, and welcome to the panelists that I have not met formally before. So I'm looking forward to a very hearty conversation and informative for our communities regarding the powerful impact that these wonderful guests have on the community at large.
Thank you.
Shall we start with?
Let's, yes, go ahead, Mohammed. Go ahead, Mohammed.
I'll go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. So I have for each panelist, and then each panelist will have a few seconds to give an introduction, and then we'll start the question. So again, welcome everyone. Today we have our first guest, our first panelist is Nafisa Fai. Nafisa Fai is a small business owner and a public health expert dedicated to improving the health and strength of our region, raising her family in Washington County, Oregon.
I think Mohammed is having an internet connection, Mohammed.
Yes. Okay, it seems like we are having some technical difficulties, and I will. So, Sister Nafisa, as Brother Mohammed was introducing you, and I'll just go over, very briefly, and then you can tell us more about. Sister Nafisa is part of the Portland community. You are a small business owner and also are very involved in the community and in public works. Inshallah, please continue if you can tell us more about yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you for having us, and I appreciate this opportunity to, get our messages across and reach critical mass. Thank you to MET, and thank you to the moderators. Even though Mohammed is having some internet issues, hopefully he can resolve that and join us in shortly. My name is Nafisa, Nafisa Fai, as Mohammed was saying. I'm originally from Somalia. I've been in America for about a little over 23 years now. I was about 10 or 11 when the war broke out in Somalia, and then lived in refugee camps for about 5 years before coming to America. And my background is in public health. I did 9 years for the American Red Cross. And until I changed it to figure it out, how can I switch my lab coat and blue gloves and the face shield that now it's very glamorous because of the pandemic. I wanted to have a more of a direct impact, sort of immediate impact to the community, and wanted to figure out what else I can do. So I did a really, after 9 years with the Red Cross, sort of a career change, and decided that it was either to go back to school for a physician assistant or to do public health. And after volunteering for Multnomah County Health Department, I decided that public health was where my heart was and where I can drastically and immediately contribute to the improvements of our community. I did a few years for local county health department, various roles in that department. And then I decided to switch to a public health organization called Upstream Public Health. Really it's where I learned and saw the impacts of policy change, and especially when we, the communities of color, low-income communities, communities who are negatively impacted by policies and ordinance change, the power of when we are the builders of the mechanics of that ordinance or that policy. So that was my eye opener and a sort of aha moment. And after that organization closed down, I started my own business, and I'm now running for office. You'll hear later more.
Thank you so much, Sister Nafisa. Can you all hear me now?
That's you're breaking up a little bit.
Breaking up.
I'm not sure what's happening. I can hear you all fine, which is strange.
Yes. But you're
Go
better.
ahead, Sister Joy.
Go ahead. And it's very
Better now?
inspirational, Sister Nafisa, your journey. Thank you so much for being here today. Mohammed, go ahead. Mohammed?
You're on mute, Mohammed. That might just be the issue.
That could be the issue. Well,
Okay, am I on mute now?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay, sorry. Our next panelist is Sue Obeidi. Sue Obeidi has blended her love for her faith with her love for film, television, and digital series to change and expand the narrative of Islam and Muslims in the entertainment industry. In 2017, Sue was chosen for Variety's Inclusion Impact Report as one of 60 change makers making the entertainment industry more inclusive. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you to the audience, to MET, to Wajdi and Sahar and everybody on the panel and our moderators, and God bless you. And I hope you and your families are all safe. My name is Sue Obeidi. I'm the director of the Muslim Public Affairs Council's Hollywood Bureau. And we work in the industry to change the narrative around Islam and Muslims. As you know, from the inception of the industry, Islam and so many other, Muslims and so many other marginalized communities have taken a beating. We've been vilified, by the industry for one reason or another, to whether it's political, whether it's there's an agenda behind it or what, but marginalized communities have historically been taking a beating, and we work within the industry to change the narrative. And we do this in three ways. Number one, we consult on TV and film projects, and we give our notes, we give our thoughts, we give some storyline ideas. We do roundtables with writers and directors and creatives. The second thing we do is we connect our Muslim talent to the mainstream industry. And so, for example, if a Netflix calls and says, we're adapting a book and it has a Muslim theme, we want an authentic voice. Do you have a screenwriter you can recommend? So we're a conduit to the industry. And then the third thing we do is we contribute our thought leadership in the form of organizing and speaking on panels, writing opinion editorials in the trades. The trades are Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, Deadline, IndieWire, they call them the trade. That was the term back in the day, and they still call them that. We have our screenwriting labs where we try to mentor our screenwriters to hone their craft, because this is really a cutthroat, very competitive industry. And we want to make sure that when the industry calls, our community's ready. So we consult, we connect, and we contribute. And I've been with the organization for 20 years, and inshallah in November, it'll be 20 years. And then the Impact Hollywood director for about 4 years. And I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And our third panelist is Jose Mujaddadi. For over 20 years, Jose has served the Muslim communities in the Greater Bay Area and Orange County, LA area as an organizer, a teacher, a spiritual counselor, a mentor, and a mental health advocate. She is currently teaching classes once a month at Talif for women, as well as offering workshops and other talks to Islamic schools and masjids for the greater community.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا وحبيبنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, my dear esteemed panelists, co-panelists. It's an honor to be with all of you. I want to thank MET in particular, Brother Wajdi, of course, Sister Sahar, Juwaria, Brother Muhammad, the entire team for inviting me to be a part of such an amazing program. I wasn't quite sure what it was. I mean, the descriptions were clear, but I think I haven't done this before. So I'm really excited to learn from all of you amazing women. I'm already impressed. So I'm really, again, just honored to be here. A little bit about my background. Alhamdulillah, Brother Muhammad covered it. I am a teacher and educator by profession, but alhamdulillah, since 2009, I co-founded a website called mentalhealthformuslims.com with Dr. Nafisa Sakandri. She's a clinical psychologist. And this was an initiative to really assess and address the mental health needs of our community. And alhamdulillah, that it's opened, it opened a new avenue for me to do mental health advocacy work in our community. So I work with some of the mental health professionals here in the Bay Area, alhamdulillah. And really, most of my classes are about mental health issues, but also about spiritual development, self-development. So I work a lot with youth. I work primarily with women and youth, but also I do a lot of community events as well here in the San Francisco Bay Area on a variety of topics, family, spirituality, just a lot of different topics related to the community needs, again, based on my experience. So alhamdulillah, I've known Brother Wajdi for over, I'm going to age myself and him, but for quite a long time. And he's, mashallah, always been a champion of women, of causes like this. And I really appreciate and respect so much of the work that he's been able to accomplish in the time that I've known him. I look to him as a mentor and someone I have just a great esteem for. So of course, when he called me to be a part of this, it was a no-brainer, and here I am. So thank you.
Thank you, sister. And next we have Rima Ghandour. As a lawyer, Rima has been a leader in our legal community with a deep dedication to public service to advance the principles of justice she fell in love with. In addition to her legal practice, Rima is committed to public service in the community. Rima currently serves as a board member and past president of both the Multnomah County Bar Association and the Queen's Bench, the Multnomah County chapter of the Oregon Women Lawyers.
Thank you, Muhammad. Salam alaikum. My name is Rima Ghandour. I immigrated to the US just like Nafisa did, but at the age of 18. I grew up in Lebanon and in Iraq, and I tell people my first memory was of a bombing. I don't know which one, but it was one of the many that we lived through in the area. I have been in the US now for 30 years. Actually, probably in another week, it will be exactly 30 weeks, inshallah. And I went to school, I came to go to school and then decided to stay because I did love the principles or the hope of what the US Constitution gives in terms of justice and equality. And I say it's a hope because it's a work in progress. And I decided to go to law school and went to law school in California. And in 2002, after my firstborn was born, we moved to Oregon and have been in Multnomah County ever since. I also am a small business owner. I've owned my own firm for the last 7.5 years. It's a woman certified small business. I also, as Brother Muhammad said, I've been very involved in the community, whether it's with the Muslim Education Trust or the Arab American Cultural Center as a founder and past president, or the legal community through the Multnomah Bar Association, the Oregon State Bar, and the Oregon Women's Lawyers. So it's a little bit about myself. And I have 2 boys.
Thank you, Sister Rima. And last but certainly not least, we have Nadia Hassan. Nadia Hassan brings a wealth of experience as a former high school teacher in the Beaverton schools. She also has a background in human resources and marketing with experiences working for companies such as Nike, Fred Meyers, and Warner Brothers. Go ahead, Nadia.
Mute. Thank you. Thank you, Brother Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. And thank you so much for taking your time on a Sunday afternoon to be participating in this. And thank you to the staff and team who put this together. So appreciate the work that you're doing in this. And just a little bit about me. My dad is from India, my mom is from Pakistan, and I was born and raised here in the United States. And my identity crisis of who I was very alive and well, because India and Pakistan are different, but not to most people. And then also being born here was very tricky, because I would go around and say I'm 33% Indian, 33% Pakistani, and 34% American, trying to rationalize kind of who I was. And I have taught here in schools as a teacher, and I am probably always a teacher before I am anything else. And I am also a mother to 3 children who have really inspired me to say we need to do more for our young people and our future, which is why I'm running for office, and just very thankful to be with such lovely people today. So thank you.
It is said that, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mohammed. You were going to say something?
No, thank you and for everyone for introducing yourselves. I know it's not enough to tell us all about what you're doing in life, but we'd love to hear about that through the questions. So go ahead, sister.
Thank you, everybody, for taking time out on a Sunday, as Nadia said. It is said that women are the backbone of the society. We are the, bearers of our next generation, and a strong woman will actually lead to a strong future, inshallah. And I'm so blessed to be with you today to get inspiration, learn from your strength, and then inshallah, God willing, it is going to go through our future generations. My first question is for everybody, and I will call out. So we'll go from the last to first. So Nadia, you will be up first. My first question is, what inspires you to do what you do? I know you just went over it briefly with your background, but tell us what inspires you to what you do.
That's a great question. So I would say I have been most inspired by my children and my students. So I was a high school teacher, and I saw students go through different situations. So having a home, having food, having support, seeing what different families went through, seeing their struggles, and knowing that I've had my own, but by no means the struggles that some of the students that I had gone through, and then more specifically my kids. And I think when I think about running, and when I think about what I want to be for my kids and what I want to be for the future, I think of my daughters. And I have 2 girls. I have a son and 2 daughters. And I will never forget the day that I could not be back at work after a 3-month maternity leave, part of which was paid and part of which was not paid, trying to grapple leaving my daughter at daycare every day and just manage, and ultimately having to say, I cannot actually do this. I have to leave. And so I'm inspired because I remember quitting, and I remember saying, my daughter won't have to choose. Like, if that is the best thing that I can do, is that when she has her kids, she doesn't have to choose between a career that is allowing her to grow and taking care of her children. So I really think of what I want for my daughter and the daughters that will continue to come, so that they can have flexibility, and they don't have to choose between anything, and they can have all of the things that they want to have, or not if they don't want to. So that's personally what inspires me.
Yes, it is very touching thinking about your daughters, our daughters, because our daughters are our future. Rima, you did say that your one of your first few memories are of a bombing or of bombings, and it's very hard to live through that experience. What inspires you to do what you are doing?
Oh, I loved what you said about the woman and are women. And it probably goes back to both my tetas, my grandmas, from both sides. One grandma was as strong as you can be and as scary as you can be. And she was the strong woman who would go down to the village and actually stand up to men and armed militias to protect like the Christian monastery up the street when they were going to go raid it. As a small kid, she would send me with food around the village to say, you know what, she's a widower. They don't have money. Go, here's part of our meal. Go give it to them. That was one grandmother. The other grandmother, my other teta, who never learned to read or write, and till the day she died at 98, but was one of the most just and sweet and smart and wise women in the world. And she told me the value of kindness, of the value of helping and not judging people without knowing all the facts, no matter what. When I would go to her crying about something, and she's like, look around you. What is it? What else is there for you to see? What are you missing from the picture? So those were and my mom, who has strength like nobody else I've seen, raising us in war without my father half the time because he was working outside the country. So these are the women who sort of I stand on their shoulders. They show me the way of being, wanting to change the world. And then, our kids, I know I don't have girls, but I have my 2 boys, and they were one of the main reasons I helped found with Brother Wajdi, the Arab American Cultural Center, because I could see them lose their culture and get sucked into the stereotypes that Sue was talking about, because they're half Arab, half not, and not knowing where they are and getting all the negative feedback. And I felt that we needed a place for them and other children to feel safe and explore their culture and, who they're from. But those are the things that inspire me. Changing the world, it can be so much better. There is so much heartache. There is so much hardship. And we are privileged to be in a role to actually provide change or be the vehicle for change. And that's what inspires me.
I love listening about our grandmothers because, one of the strongest women in our religion and our culture are our mothers of the Muslimin, Ummahat al-Mu'minin, the mothers of the believers. And they are also our very first teachers as well. And as Sister Hasay had said, that she, she's been a mentor, a teacher for past 20 years, and and her inspirations came from so many different places. Sister Hasay, what inspires you? What else inspires you? Actually, that's a question. Actually, should be asking that. What else inspires you?
Thank you, Juwaria. Thank you so much. First, I want to just thank both of the previous speakers for their beautiful testimonies. It was really heartwarming to hear. And of course, all these feelings are emerging inside of me as I'm listening to both of you, because I can relate. I am a child of immigrant or refugees, I should say, who came from Afghanistan, my parents. And when I over the years, when I've heard their story and how harrowing it was, I always think about that was not in vain, that they went through such a perilous journey to leave Afghanistan with 5 young children, almost died several times along the way, to escape and then to take refuge in Pakistan for about a few weeks until things got settled and they were able to come here. And just the experiences of my father going from a very high paying prestigious position in Kabul as a bank executive and being educated abroad. He was well educated, to having to work in a pizzeria, and not to say there's anything wrong with that, but just to see the impact that had on him, and then to eventually go and to become a taxi cab driver. And my mother was a maid in many of the hotels in Virginia where we were when we first came. When I hear about their story and their struggles, and remember what they had to go through to give us the life that we eventually were able to have, I am so moved by their strength and their sacrifice that I draw a lot of strength from that. And I also draw a lot of inspiration that I have to make sure that their hardships, everything they endured isn't in vain in my own work, and then to pass on that same those same values to my children. And of course, in my community activism, what inspires me is the need, the immense need for mental health support. You know, when I was in high school, one of the most impactful events of my life, and I still remember it freshly, was I had to do a suicide intervention at 16 years old with one of my classmates. And it was very difficult to have that responsibility on my shoulders to try to keep someone on the phone before they take their own life. But that sort of, to me, foreshadowed what I was going to be doing, because from that point forward, I found myself in this position of being, you know, people bringing me into their problems, asking me for advice, seeking mentorship, seeking counseling or guidance from me. And I was young, but I think some people, Allah knows best, but I feel like that, you know, we're all sort of sometimes put on a path we don't necessarily think that we should be on. But I was put definitely on the path of mental health support or spiritual support very early on, and that carries throughout my entire 20-30 years of activism that I've been relatively active in the Muslim community from, I would say, around high school until now. All of it has been, you know, this has been a constant theme of dealing with real serious issues. Some of my friends, closest friends, were, you know, from broken homes, alcoholic homes, you know, domestic abuse. So I saw a range. And then one of my best friends actually ended up passing away early. I've had to deal with a lot of very heavy topics, but I think when I look at the needs of our community and how the stigma of mental health has prevailed for so long, I feel very passionate about doing everything I can to dismantle that stigma and to empower people, especially youth, to embrace mental health just as they do their physical health. It is a priority. And this is from Islam. It's not modern necessarily psychology. Our faith has so much, I mean, there are du'as, there are so much relevance. Preserving one's mental health. I mean, it's one of the aims of Sharia, subhanAllah, you know, to preserve life and to preserve your sanity. So I think we need to restore the value of mental health in our community. And so that really motivates me when I see teens who have anxiety disorders and are struggling with so many things. I want to be able to really give them the tools, the language, and the resources to be able to find help, inshallah, for themselves and then for their family members. So those are the things that really motivate me. And of course, strong, amazing women like you, who I draw my strength from as well. I'm really just so touched, and I can't wait to hear from the rest of you. So thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
And activism of any form is very important for not only, especially for our Muslim community, for us to become more part of of all of the world's fabric. What Sister Hosay, you're doing in mental health field, or Sue Obeidi, you're doing in a broader general public, where, you know, image of Muslims needs to be, you know, corrected. And so what else inspires you, Sue?
Yeah, first of all, you don't need to say Sue Obeidi, because I'm the only Sue on this grid. But I want to just say what an honor it is to be with all of you, and just the journey that you were just talking about, Sister Hosay, about God puts you in this path, and sometimes this path is traumatic. Like, you're experiencing some funky things that you're like, why was I exposed to this? You know, one of my friends in the industry committed suicide or died by suicide 4 days after talking. I had a conversation about a project, and then 4 days later I get this Variety email, and he jumped off a building. And it's like, I'm thinking to myself, why did God make me talk to him? You know, not that we talked about anything, but it was like, you know, what am I supposed to learn from this kind of thing? So God bless you. And this baggage that we as a community hold on to, the mental, you know, health issues, it's like, I just don't understand between the faith and the culture. So anyway, that's besides what I wanted to say. What inspires me really is my faith, Islam. I mean, I'm definitely not the perfect Muslim. I try to be really good, but I'm not the perfect Muslim, but I'm madly in love with Islam. And this is why I just take the beatings I do in the industry, because, you know, we are here to protect this beautiful, well, as far as impact is concerned, we're here to protect this beautiful faith that is wildly misunderstood. And so what inspires me every day is to be part of that. Islam does not need defending. but the image of Islam needs defending. And I'm just so grateful to God for putting me, on this journey to be part of to be a conduit for the change. And I'm only one in hundreds of people doing the change. But every day I wake up, I'm so grateful to God for being Muslim, because, by just a crapshoot, I was born Muslim, right? No, I didn't do anything to, become Muslim, except that I was born to 2 Muslim parents. But every day I wake up and I choose to be Muslim and do the Shahada. And then number 2, to have the privilege to work in an industry that allows me to have a voice where I can make small changes, connect people who are storytellers, who can uplift our voices and elevate our profile. So my faith inspires me, just in a nutshell.
Thank you. And representation matters.
Absolutely.
Representation, and as you said, we all are talking about Islam does not need defending, but the image of Islam needs defending. That's the most beautifully said.
That's beautiful.
Well, I mean, it says in the Quran, I mean, God is going to take care of it. He'll take care of Islam, but that doesn't mean that Islam's image is not taking a beating.
Exactly, and that's why representation matters. And for Nafisa, Sister Nafisa, what inspires you? Because I know you represent us, so many of us around Portland area. Sister Nafisa, I don't.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have to tell you, that's a really beautiful quote, Sue. Thank you so much.
Well, I mean, it was God, really. I mean, it was really God. I mean, it really says God. I mean, He'll take care of Islam. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, but you put those words together, and I love it.
Thank you.
I think what inspires me, to piggyback on what Sue said, definitely my faith and definitely my culture. I come from, I wasn't born here. And, on top of being Muslim and a woman, I'm also a Black woman. And coming to this country was a bit of a shock, coming from Africa, where everyone looked like me, in Kenya and Somalia or Ethiopia. All those countries that I've been to, everybody looked the same and didn't really. So finding out that, you're Black and these are all the checklists that apply to you was a bit of a shock. And what really inspired me was this idea that, listen, I overcame a war and I overcame a refugee. I can overcome all this stigma and these check marks that you're applying to me. They're not going to hold me down. And really persevering and pushing through. When I was a little girl in the refugee camp, I had a dream when I come to America, because, when you're desperate, it's never an if, it's always a when, right? So my dream was, when I come to America, I will work for the UN or the Red Cross. Because those were 2 agencies that were helping us in the refugee camps. Those are the only thing I knew. Besides the madrasa school that we were learning, there was no such thing as schooling. So when I came to America and got my first degree, that was my, besides all these, oh, you're Black, this is this and this, and all this racial stuff that I was hearing, and, I really was gonna stick to my dream. And I found out that Red Cross, there was no UN in Oregon. So I went to work for the Red Cross. There was an American Red Cross here. And, sharing my story to the community also, it's really what another way that I inspire myself and to continue to inspire communities that identify with me, Muslim women and Black and African and Somali. And so really, because it's really hard to be in this country when you're a Black person, and on that, when you're visibly Muslim, it's even harder. So sharing my story that, listen, none of these names and stigma and stereotypes do not apply to you. I was a little girl, 12-year-old, dreaming about working for the Red Cross or the UN. Fast forward, I worked for the Red Cross. It might not be the Red Cross that was helping us, because I was in the blood banking industry, because I went to the science route in the health field, but it still was, and that dreams are attainable and they can be achieved. So that's really just the idea of pushing yourself, you know, and trying to reach your dreams, and that anything is possible, and letting people know that, you know, and working with the dominant culture to really educate them that you know, without opportunities, abilities are nothing. That, you know, communities that come with less, we need to create them the opportunities so that they can show their abilities and that they can demonstrate what they can and what they're able to do. Because everybody, you know, in America, you know, whether we were born in Africa or somewhere else, we really want to contribute to make America a more perfect union. You know, what the Constitution says, we really want to contribute in a drastic way. I think a lot of the, you know, inequities in the systems is what holds people back, and all these stereotypes. So my inspirations is really breaking barriers and showing that resilience, with resilience and perseverance, anything is possible in this country.
Wow, thank you all. What inspires all of you is truly inspiring for like all of us. I mean, I'm just sitting here with goosebumps because I think not only the Muslim community, but the larger community, when hearing these stories, it inspires anyone really to go out and be their best person and represent their community as best they could. And for my next question, we can do this the reverse order again. Is that okay? So we'll start with Nafisa. But as we know, obviously, Muslims take a huge hit in the community and in the US as far as the image in the public square. Otherwise, we wouldn't have these great organizations like MET and Impact doing the work they're doing. And so knowing that, we also know that Muslim women face even a harsher challenges in the public square. And so what challenges have you all faced in the public square, and how have you overcome, or how are you overcoming these challenges being a Muslim woman in the public square? And Sister Nafisa, if you don't mind going first, that would be great.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's a really good question. I think representation, it's really what the challenge is here in Oregon. In my opinion, I would say, you know, and this isn't something that's new. In 2013, when I was working for a local county health department, the MERS outbreak happened. And if you guys know the MERS outbreak, that was the Middle Eastern, you know, the outbreak happened during Hajj. I think it was a pilgrim, Umrah or Hajj, I'm not sure. I think it was around Umrah time. Anyways, there was an outbreak that happened, and here I was as a public health professional. And I was added onto the response team as a voice for two roles, for the Muslim community and for the communities of color. And I think that if I wasn't the only Muslim person, or if there wasn't like one of the two Muslim people that were working in that whole department or around issues, or had like some kind of a leadership cloud, or whatever the reason is that's happening for organizations, that wouldn't be the case, because there weren't many of us that were working. So the few of us that were working, we had to tag team and take double roles and sort of be the speakers of many issues in many communities. So I think really some of the issues are really representations. And lack of representations tend to perpetuate a lot of the structural issues and disparities that's going on in our communities. And this isn't really, you know, this isn't something that's special to the Muslim communities and Muslim women. It's really communities of color and low-income communities, lack of representation. And then we tend to have, you know, disparities that tend to just cycle back and forth. And in terms of what I know around politics, since I'm involved in politics now, I would say, again, representation. Muhammad is the only Muslim that I know who's elected in Oregon, elected official in Oregon. And really that, you know, and he's been working really hard to change that. And he's got many of us running, you know, and have had a conversation with us and many more to be involved, because he understands the importance of having many people to be in the political conversations. So I really think representation, the lack of representation, is one of the challenges. And I'll stop right there because I think others will have more to add on. I don't want to just keep rallying on.
My
Thank
next.
you, Sister Nafisa. Yes, please go
No,
ahead.
no, I
Sue.
just want to say, even in Hollywood, Black Muslim representation is very, you can count it on one hand. Like when we're consulting and we're telling people, hey, change the character from an Arab Muslim from a South Asian or Arab Muslim to a Black Muslim. They're like, a Black Muslim? It's like, yeah, they're the largest population of Muslims in America. Like, but we don't see them, so I totally echo what you're saying. The challenges for me, I mean, I'm the guy, I'm a woman of a certain age. I'm pretty loud and sometimes I'm just, I'm a bull in a China store. So I definitely take my challenges and, deal with them. But I think as a whole, I'll be honest with you, the challenges that really bug me is how little, and I'm going to say a blanket statement, and you might get emails like never have Sue on again, but how little our community really fully understands this beautiful faith of ours. We are so buried in our culture. And I'm not talking to any of you. I'm just talking in general. We are so buried in our culture that we don't a lot of times decipher or distinguish between the culture and the actual faith. And then what we think are obstacles that we just created for ourselves. God didn't do it. It's very clear. The haram in the Quran is the haram. It's very clear what not to do. Everything else is pretty much okay. But yet we create these walls for ourselves. And this is why I think, doing this work in Hollywood, yes, were there walls in Hollywood? Absolutely. But a lot of times we created our own walls thinking, you know what, this industry isn't for us, it's for the other. That was really a wrong mentality. And when you think about the opportunity cost, like what we could have done earlier, if we just did not think that way, it's just mind-boggling. So the challenges are really within. There are external challenges. Do not get me wrong. There are people who do not want to see Muslims in the public square. Look at the DNC that just happened. We have Rashida, we had, Ilhan, we had Keith, we had Andre. None of them spoke. Why? So it's true. There are external, challenges, but really the bigger challenges are within us. And so that's my answer. And I know that's not a popular answer, but that's my answer.
No, thank you. It's a very good answer. And
You're breaking up again, Muhammad. I think you're saying good stuff, but I can't hear you. Can't hear you.
We'll move on to Sister Jose.
Yes. Oh my gosh, Sue, I love every word you just said. And I echo every word you just said. Thank you for saying it, because
people include
my experience, absolutely. For the past, does someone want to, should I just wait?
I think Muhammad is still trying to talk.
Or there must be a lag, because I feel like if you heard one of us, probably not. Oh gosh. Inshallah. Okay. Poor Brother Muhammad, Jazakallah khair. Your tenacity is admirable. MashaAllah. I wanted to, though, say, in my experience, working with women, which have been the biggest constituent that I've worked with, or the biggest group, I have seen a range of issues that speak to everything you just said, Sue, and I really, really appreciate that, because identity to me is the biggest challenge. And what is exactly as you said, being able to distinguish what are your cultural, hurdles or barriers.
We can go on to the system side.
Hey guys, I don't think it's Muhammad. I think someone is on this line that might not, I don't think it's Muhammad, because he's on mute.
No, go ahead, please. Go ahead. I heard it. Go ahead.
Sister Hosai, go ahead.
Okay, I was muted somehow, but okay, I think I'm back. So I'm sorry, I was saying that in my experience working with Muslim women, I have heard for over 20 years, so many, and they've come to me, I do a lot of work with women, and I've seen this repeat theme of, again, this crisis of identity. Really, it comes down to identity. Are you, if you're empowered in your faith, you're going to know what, you need to, the filtering process becomes very clear. Like, I need to stop this, I need to stop that. And, you can find that voice within. But when you are not empowered in your faith and culture muddles your identity, and you have all these other, influences around you, and you're not really clear on who you are and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, what his expectations are of you, how he's honored you, how he's elevated you, how the Prophet has elevated you, then unfortunately you can fall prey to what we see all around us, which is the, women being exploited, women being taken advantage of, women really not being deprived of opportunity. And I see this over and over again. So one of my passions again is to work with young women and just to remind them of who they are. And exactly as Sue said, to really be able to just say, culture is likely the issue that's standing in front of you, or something within that you have to work out, which is why, self-development is such a big part of what I offer as well when I teach. It's like, you got to develop yourself. You have to know who you are. And then once you can really have some legs to stand on, then nobody's going to stand in your way, and I think that's, one of the, when I work with women in workshops, we do different group work, and I reference this study just to make an impact and to remind them that really, until you get your vision clear about who you are, you're going to face these challenges. You guys can look it up, but there's a really amazing study that was done and published in 2009, and it's called The Paradox of Declining Female Happiness. And it's a 4-year study where they looked at women of all different cross sections, backgrounds, socioeconomic, culture, marital status, how much, children, everything. And they found that there's been this decline, 40 years, like what's happening, that even though women have more opportunity, right? We live in, obviously with women's rights, we've seen a lot of change, right? But those things haven't really materialized into women reporting qualities of life, that their quality of life has improved, or that their life satisfaction is improved. So it's really, confused and dumbfounded researchers, like, how is this happening? Because we get into these, sort of mindsets that if I have more opportunity, or if I have more this, I have more that, I'm going to suddenly find happiness and success. Well, the outcome of the, research wasn't quite definitive, because it's, it's difficult. It's a very subjective thing to measure, but they did find that there were 2 things that were pretty consistent, that 2 things that women were lacking across the board, which is, one is social cohesion. Women weren't getting together enough. And I'm not talking about getting together with your girlfriends for, coffee or a shopping trip or something social. I mean, intellectual, like, stimulation. I mean, like, really remembering who you are, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us as intellectual beings, right? But sometimes that goes to the wayside. You become a mom, you become a wife, or you're a daughter, and your whole identity gets wrapped up into that. And you forget that you were created to worship Allah on the same level. There's no distinction in the sight of Allah between your worship and your effort and than a man's. But women unfortunately have, not by their own fault, I'm not blaming anybody, but it's just a matter of not having that knowledge and awareness, that they've given up that position that Allah gave them. So we have to reclaim it. But to know that lack of social cohesion, and then also the other thing is increased anxiety, because why? We are adopting or accepting the narrative that we have to be perfect, that everything has to be perfect all the time. And obviously that's going to induce anxiety. I mean, if I feel like I have to be super mom, or I'm measured by this impossible yardstick of perfection based on how I look, how I dress, how well my kids are dressed, my husband, is he fed, and then I'm talking in general, but you add our different nuanced cultural, expectations, it gets insane. So we're never happy, we're never satisfied in our personal lives. And then we don't even have outlets to find peace or some semblance of normalcy. What happens, no matter how much achievement, how much accomplishment, how much we have materially, we seem to be dwindling. So I'm really about empowering women. Allah is first. Please Him, be concerned about His pleasure. Everything else will fall into place. Don't try to meet all these other benchmarks that people impose on you. He's the only one that you need to focus on. So, Bismillah.
SubhanAllah. Thank you so much for this beautiful reminder, Sister Jose. Always Allah first, yes, and always remember, please Allah, and everything falls better. Sister Rima Ghandour,
Yeah, hi. So I'm going to repeat what Nafisa said in some ways. Representation is really, really important. There is, just as there's very few Muslim women in other professions, at least in Oregon, there's probably less than a handful, right? Let alone there has never been a woman Muslim judge in Oregon and only two in the nation as a whole through the history of judges. So there is that underrepresentation, severe underrepresentation. And the reason it matters is the few of us that are there have become tokenized. We are the ones who are asked to speak at anytime anybody needs a better understanding or has a question, we are the ones who get asked. But on the same hand, we are the source of knowledge, but we don't get equal opportunity from that knowledge. So we are used, but not compensated for that. In many ways, I'm not saying money compensated. In any ways, it's not returned. So there is that issue. There's also the stereotype issue. Again, one of the biggest things when people find out I'm a Muslim, they're like, "What? You know, you're supposed to be back home doing nothing, right?" There's this stereotype that you always have to overcome, right? Without an understanding of how strong our Muslim women are, you have to always overcome these stereotypes of what it means to be a Muslim, what it means to be a professional Muslim woman, what it means to, raise your kids, go do good deeds and, succeed and want to succeed in your chosen profession, right? I mean, that's, there's people looking down on you from actually both inside the culture, culturally, from both inside, right? And from outside, because you are ambitious and you want to achieve goals that you've set for yourself, your family, your community. So those are all obstacles we face, but they're also a reason to overcome. They're why we're doing what we're doing. Because, somebody judging me on my faith, whether that person is from my faith, saying, "Ooh, Rima should not be doing this as a Muslim woman," or Rima's faith is questioned, or somebody from the outside who is taking away from me because of my faith. These are all things we have to overcome. We have to be in the public square. We have to be representing, and it can't be just one of us or two of us. We need to be out there in numbers, because representation at the end of the day does matter for both our culture, our community, our faith, and for people looking in at us. So.
Thank you, Rima. Nadia.
Yeah, I think you all just gave such powerful answers. So I'm like, how do I even take any of it? But I'm going to take a little bit of everyone's. Like, the first thing is Islam, right? In Islam, we know that women have certain rights. And there's something that Rima and Nafisa really focused on, which is this idea of representation and how we need more representation. And then Sue really touched upon how we're our own enemies. And I hate to say this, and it's going to be the unpopular opinion, but some of our own communities, right, have gotten in the way of us wanting to run, right? So, or wanting to do something. And so what happens when you don't have representation? Well, it started because people didn't feel like their voices mattered or their voices should be heard. And so I'm like, alhamdulillah, like I was raised by a father. He had 3 girls. I think he did not know what he was doing when he had 3 girls. My mother, who chose to work and work despite whatever people thought she should or shouldn't do. So I come from people who broke kind of stereotypes, who said, no, your place is not in the house. Your place is not those things. And so I worry that sometimes our own communities, our uncles and our aunties and our brothers and our sisters, who I adore and I love, I respect, I worry sometimes that they get in our way too, because they have a perception of what Islam says, which is really a perception of what like their Islam says and not like Islam says. And so really starting to pivot and say, like, what are we doing? Because we won't change the representation problem unless we take our young people and start to and show them where they belong. You do belong. You get to be a judge. You get to be a counselor. You get to be a commissioner. You get to be these things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is first, but what you want to do is also equally important. And so everyone just did such an amazing job capturing it. And I want to say, let's look at within our communities and challenge our people and the people around us, because, you know, alhamdulillah, I'm so lucky. My parents are very much behind me, but I know a lot of people who, if they went to their parents and said, you know, I want to do this, or you know, I don't know that everyone would do that. And I don't know how many people get behind those people. And I'm really thankful for everyone. Y'all are here. So thank you for supporting us, but tell your brothers and your sisters and your uncles and your aunts, like, we need to get more women. More women should be at the table, at our mosques, in our government, everywhere, not just, you know, everywhere, like even in the mosque, like women should be in helping make the decisions for our communities, because the influence and the power that we have is so important.
Can I just add to what Nadia said? I fully agree with everybody. This is where it's very perplexing to me. When you look at our Islamic history and you see the women in our history, whether it was, you know, Virgin Mary or Khadija or, you know, or Aisha, may God be pleased with all of them. Like it's very perplexing how this faith empowered women. Like, I really think that women in Islam have more rights than men in Islam. And then, and yet we are often talking about, like, you know, we have to do this, we have to do this. I mean, it really is a shame when you think about the Judeo-Christian tradition, where really they didn't have a lot of rights. Yet the women's movement came along and then said, women, we have, and you know, and we're still not where we need to be, even as non-Muslim women. But like, for example, take the prenuptial agreement. The prenuptial agreement is Islamic. Like, white women, Judeo-Christian women, did not create a prenuptial agreement. Islam created a prenuptial agreement in the form of a marriage contract. So it's just very perplexing how we went back so far as a community. And when we talk about we have rights, we have more rights, and we have to reclaim our power. We really do. And if anyone's in the way, we really need to work politely and professionally and just get them out of the way. I want to just give you a little story, real short, and then we'll go to the next one. I'm really sorry to take over this, but it really irks me. This really irks me. Like, I joined a Muslim ping pong competition with our community mosque, and you know, the men and women had to pay the same fees, whatever. I walk into the ping pong gym and I'm looking at the trophies, and like the first place prize for the women is like this little trophy, right? And the men get this big giant first place prize, and yet it's the same competition. So we really need to kind of change the paradigm from within. Just, you know, anyway, I do not like to talk about this because it gets me really upset.
No, Sue, you and Nafisa and Hosai and Nadia and Rima all are hitting the nerve that it is the female representation, Muslim women representation is very important. And we as women, we are very strong. We are more than capable of doing anything. If we look at the Medinian society, the early Medina society, when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him, migrated to Medina, women were not put away. They were part of decision-making process, and they were represented. They asserted themselves as well, and we need to take that narrative back, basically. And that's actually one of the questions that I wanted to talk about as well. That, you know, what message do we have? But before we do that, actually, Nafisa and Rima and Nadia, actually, you did mention that you all, I believe, are running for a public office. And what was the driving force behind that decision? I want to know. We can start off with Nafisa.
Thank you, Nadia. I'm running to be the next Washington County Commissioner for District 1, which is Beaverton, Aloha area, and Reedville and Cooper Mountain, folks who are watching. So if you're in that area, please vote for Nafisa this November 3rd. I am running, you know, when I'm elected, I'll be the first woman of color to be on the Board of Commissioners in Washington County. Now, this is one of the most diverse counties in Oregon, one of the most diverse counties in Oregon. And add on to it, this county was founded in the early 1800s, long before even our state, Oregon, was incorporated into the Union as a state. So this community is really ready for a change, and we're ready for a new perspective. We are ready to be part of the decision making and the political process. Also, Washington County, there's this narrative that, you know, in my campaign and throughout my campaign, we've been trying to really get rid of and address, is this narrative in my district and in my county that communities of color have just arrived, which isn't true. The other narrative that exists is that, you know, communities of color and low-income communities are not part of the political conversations and debates. So really addressing those two components and having myself, you know, I'm a small business owner, I'm a public health professional. I've been representing our district on the Clean Water Services Advisory Commission. I also sit on the Maternal Mortality and Morbidity Review Committee appointed by the governor, our governor, Kate Brown. I'm more than qualified. It's just that we've never had a candidate looking like this run for this seat. And I'm really excited to pave the way. You know, and win or lose, it's gonna really empower and mobilize and galvanize, you know, communities that have never been invited to run for office or be part of the political conversations, or, you know, in a critical mass. Right? There's always usually what Rima was talking about earlier, this idea of tokenizing the ones of color, you know, communities of color that we like. But I'm hoping that through my campaign to really create a mass number of people who empower themselves to run for office in Washington County in particular, to just so that, you know, this idea that communities of color are not part of the conversation and the political debates will really be subside and hopefully die down. So that's what I'm running. And as a future county commissioner, you know, not to be a nerdy or anything, I want to really focus on my lived experience and center that and bring voices. I'm a community organizer, that's my background, and a coalition builder. So I want to bring that experience and be that kind of a commissioner. And really, as a county commissioner, my top priorities based on my lived experience and what's relevant for my district and my people is that affordable housing is a big problem. And tackling that and really making sure that you know, we address the level, you know, the root cause of poverty and address that. And I also want to make sure, you know, there's two things about affordable housing affordability and affordable housing. Yes, I support both. I support subsidized housing because that's where I come from. When I first came to America, I own my own house, so I really want to create pathway to home ownership, uplift people out of poverty so that people can generate their own wealth. I also want to make sure, you know, our district here, for those of you listening, and many of you on this call know that Beaverton, Aloha area, we have a lot of traffic congestions. I want to make sure people are spending more time with their families and less time on the roads. And as a woman and as a person of color, my last priority, third priority, will be to make sure Washington County is safe and inclusive and prosperous place for everyone. That is my platform in a nutshell. Of course, you know, as a small business owner and a public health professional, I'll be an added value to that. I'll also be the only commissioner on the commission board with a public health background. So a lot of people, there's this idea, this big talk around being the first woman of color. And then the counter conversation to that is, well, race shouldn't matter, right? Or your diversity shouldn't matter. So if you take that out, I will be the first person to be on the board with a public health background. So, and with the pandemic, you know, not only dealing and actually managing our county's contact tracing programs, but, you know, I bring, you know, prior pandemic management from the MERS outbreak that happened in 2013. So I'm really excited as a Muslim woman, and when I run, just to give little credit back to our community, there's great people in our community that really are supportive. When I ran, and decided to run, first people I talked to were actually Muslim people, and Brother Wajdi and Muhammad both are here. And they're the ones that I said, I'm thinking about this, am I crazy? And is this doable? And I really appreciate, because having voices that really strongly support our community and actually push us. But we need more, yes. But I just wanted to recognize those two brothers and appreciate all their great work, and letting them know, if they're, I think Mohammed's still on.
Yes, they are, yes.
Yeah, and to let them know, I for one have been grateful to have the Muslim coalition and the Muslim support that have really surrounded for my campaign. Whether we run from it or we run to it, at the end of the day, we're Muslim people, and I'm a Muslim woman, and having that support really meant a lot. The other element that a lot of people don't talk about, for why you don't see many of us running, I'll just say this, many Muslim people run, and actually low communities of color, is that, there's this idea of fundraising, which is a big barrier in politics. If you don't have money, you can't get your message out. And if you can't get your message out, you can't get votes. And I really appreciate for my campaign, the power of the Muslim community and the contributions that came from that community, and for both Muhammad and Wajdi for making that happen for me, and for Rima and for Nadia, all of us, we're very grateful for your support, and look forward to representing, and we hope to represent correctly. And if we don't, you got us into this, so I hope you'll reach back and correct us.
Thank you. Well, good luck. Well, it's always so good to see Muslim women representing. I just want to run a disclaimer that Muslim Educational Trust is a nonprofit organization. We do not endorse any political candidates at all. One of the reasons I asked this question today was because I'm always inspired, and I always want our Muslim community to know that the strong Muslim women who are running for offices, it's very important for us, our organizations, to recognize the power of Muslim women and the representation by them as well. Just want to run the disclaimer that MET does not endorse any political candidates as a nonprofit organization. And Sister Rima, if you can let us know what is the office that you, if you are running for a public office as well, in a brief.
I will be brief. I'm running to be a Multnomah County judge, position 12. I would be the first Arab woman. I would be the first Muslim woman in Oregon, and only the second in the nation. So when we talk about representation, that is important. It's actually a really sad statistic.
Wow,
it is very sad. I also want to thank Brother Wajdi and Brother Muhammad, because they've both been pillars in our community. And I remember calling Brother Wajdi when this opportunity came up for actually running versus getting appointed. And I said, I think I'm going to do this. What do you think? And he said, go for it. We're behind you 100% as a community. So these things inspire you and make you want to do your best. And I, just like Nafisa said, I will ask for grace and for opportunity to make mistakes as we go forward, because none of us are perfect. And hopefully, inshallah, when we take office, we will, stumble some, and, hopefully we'll have the community to help us, correct our stand and move forward. So what inspired me, and this is, I had been watching for years, dealing with clients, dealing with people I know, the fear of the judiciary in Oregon and elsewhere. People are afraid. People with just and cases that should be brought to court are afraid to bring them, because they're afraid of the prejudice they're going to face. They're afraid that if they're wearing a hijab, that's going to be an issue. They're afraid if they have a name like Muhammad or Mahmoud or whatever, everything is going to go against them. And then the Muslim ban happened. And that just increased the fear in our community 100-fold, if not 1,000-fold. I was one of the attorneys who started the response to the airport in Seattle and in Portland to deal with what was going on. And around 6 months after actually going and talking at MET was one of the times, and listening to people and the fear, I just decided if an opportunity comes for me to serve in a way that I would be the person that makes sure, we make sure justice is served, right? We make sure that when we judge, we look at justice. We don't just look at things outside of that. We make sure that even if it's something against us, as we judge it, and we try to give everybody the opportunity to be heard, to be understood, to feel that when they appear in front of the court, it's going to be on the facts of their case. It's going to be on the strength of their word. It's not going to be because she's wearing a hijab or his name is Muhammad. And that's, and I hope to bring this not just to our Muslim and Arab community, but our community at large, all of our community that has suffered and has fear from being mistreated or misjudged, if they bring their cases forward and therefore forgo their rights, because it's important that we protect our rights. And that's why I'm running.
Acceptance is very important. You're absolutely right, Sister Rima. Nadia, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So my name is Nadia, as you all know, and I'm running for Beaverton City Council here in the city of Beaverton. If you live here, it's a small town, not that small, sorry, it's a town outside of Portland. And really quickly, what inspired me to run, I was not interested in the politics side of my life, but when the coronavirus happened and we immediately went into shutdown and I was home with 3 kids while working, I was waiting for the little carrot that was like, oh, we've got you. Like, here's your childcare, or here's your little, like, here's some help, here's some support. And I'm still waiting for that help and support. And I decided that it's not coming, or I'm realizing that it's not coming as I anxiously prepare for what school looks like for my kids next month, which will be 100% online. And for a 9 and a 6-year-old, that's terrifying. And for me as their parent, is terrifying. So I realized that there was not people that were thinking of my voice and my story and my experiences and the voices and experiences and the stories of people that I knew, and that we needed more of those voices to be at the table as a working parent, as a mom, as a Muslim, as an immigrant of parents, to say, we are going to help each other. Because in our communities, in our Muslim communities, when someone passes away, when someone gets sick, we all show up, and we show up in such a compassionate way. And it's why I love our culture and our religion. But no one is showing up for us right now in elected office. Some people are, sorry, I shouldn't say that, but some people aren't. And I want to change that. And I want to show up for people that we haven't been showing up for. So that's kind of what inspired me to run.
Thank you. Next question. Again, this is all of these questions or all of these inspirational ideas are, coming up with to the next question, basically about how, and I'm going to start with Sister Hosea and then go to Sue and then move along after that. How, what message do you have for our youth, especially young girls, in middle school, in high school, in college, or even already in their professional lives, to be happy, live a life of fulfillment and purpose? What message do you have for them, Hosea?
Yes, thank you so much. Such a great question, and one that I do often have to answer. I think, back to my previous comment where I talked about identity and the importance of really women and young girls being empowered to, take the reins and to, instead of waiting to be spoon-fed their faith by whichever authority is around, that they actually go and take that initiative to say, you know what, just like Aisha at 18 years old was teaching men twice, 3 times her age. I can absolutely forge my own spiritual path. I just, especially with today, I mean, with the access that we have to knowledge, there really isn't any excuse other than a girl being told that she can do that. So my objective is to give girls that option, that listen, Islam is, as all of you have, mashallah, remarked on, an empowering faith, and one especially for women. The Prophet ﷺ's mission from beginning, when he came and he completely banned female infanticide as one of his earliest missions, to his closing statements in his last speech, where he reminded the community of the importance of taking care of women, full circle, honoring women throughout his entire mission. We have to remind our young girls about that. And one of my goals in doing that is to encourage young girls to study with women. So I'm very supportive, and I encourage Muslim communities to not only create organizations or initiatives that are women led. We have to empower women to be able to take on leadership roles. Many of you have said, and I absolutely echo your statements about the importance of women being involved in masjid community events, but I want to make a distinction. When we say involved, we're not asking to be head of bake sale. We're not asking to be, doing only programs on women and women's rights, and it's just the only thing. We're shoved in a box and that's it. I'm saying I'm seated at the table for every discussion. Female scholarship is huge. We have, I'm part of a group on WhatsApp, hundreds of female scholars worldwide. And this is a constant theme, all male panels, the lack of representation in our programs, in our massages, the lack of representation in our leadership, in our masajid boards, our school boards. We have got to do better. And this is where we start by saying, you know what we're going to do? If we don't see those institutions, we build them. We don't wait to have a seat. If nobody's inviting us, we make the table. We make, just like the woman made the pillar for the Prophet ﷺ, we make the seat, we make the table, and then we sit at it and we invite each other and we work with each other. But I feel like we can do that if, again, going back to our tradition, we speak, I have and I'll just say this because it might, I don't like to get too political, but I do want to mention this. Feminism is a very powerful word. It's a very charged word, right? Feminism, and everybody suddenly perks up. Our deen is literally the most feminist deen on the planet. You can't find anything else that comes even close to giving women rights. So when we talk about these, points, I'm not talking about go and, borrow from all these other groups. I'm saying just go to your faith, because if you want to know what feminism is, look at the women of our history, look at the women of our legacy, look at what they did. The first university ever built was a woman. She built the first university. So all these, academics who opine on women's issues, where did you even get that place in the first place if it wasn't for the woman who created the institution for you to be able to do that? We're mothers. We're the first school of every home. We are the first schoolhouse. We're the first teacher. So I feel like just bringing women into their power, but in what? A spiritual lens. We don't need to, parrot, again, slogans and charged political ideologies. Go to the spirit. This is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's the one who elevated us, and the Prophet ﷺ came to reinforce us and to restore the honor that had been stripped from us. So what we need to do as women is reclaim that, as what was said by someone. I can't remember, mashallah, all of you have given such amazing remarks, but one of you said that, to reclaim our power. That's what we do. I believe it was Sue. Reclaim our power. So I feel like just letting girls know, study with other women, empowered women, right? Learn from other women, and build institutions where you don't see that, and forge the path. If you don't see a path there for you, forge it. You can do that. So, inshallah, I'll stop there.
Everything she said.
Yes, Sue, go ahead.
Yeah, everything she said. I mean, I don't want to be long-winded, but everything she said, God bless you. I just, a couple of things. Try to live your passion. Really figure out what you want to do. Because you want to be happy, you want to make a living, but you want to be happy. So if you don't want to be a brain surgeon, you want to be a screenwriter, you want to be an architect, talk to your parents. Don't waste time doing something that you think is going to make you happy. Really embrace what you want and make that a living. It's easier said than done, but you have to think about it to get that started. And number two, always remember that you're a powerful tool just by being here and being a woman, and you have so much influence when, in the world. And with regards to the seat at the table, we are the head of the table, and own it, assume the sale, and remember, lastly, number 3 is if you hear no, it's really a maybe. So just keep pounding through, and and forge forward. So that's me.
Yeah, persistence. Yes,
Yeah.
very important. A raindrop keep on falling on a stone will, create a crater. So very important. Nadia, what message do you have for young youth, but especially young girls?
Yeah, I think these days I think of our youth and how they're doing emotionally, and I think uh, I don't want to say the word self-care. I don't really love that word. Of just making sure that you're taking care of yourself. And so all of these speakers and so many leaders are our community are representations of who our young people should, inshallah, want to be like. But also take a moment and pause and make sure that you're taking care of yourself. There are a lot of things happening right now. I see our young people, they're watching, they're hurting, they're scared, there is so much hurt right now, and so much pain, and so much strife, and so much struggle, and so much sense of hopelessness. And so as you navigate your feelings of injustice and struggles and your own identity and dealing with your parents, and my parents were not from here, and I was raised here, and we had a lot of this happen with us. And take a moment and center in what you need to make yourself happy. And if that means getting counseling help or support or mental health support, I cannot emphasize enough. I went through a really hard time in my life several years ago, and the best thing I ever did was to see a therapist. It changed my life. And not that I want to make this about mental health, but there are so many things even today as I'm sitting in front of you that are weighing so heavily on my shoulders about my life and my family. And I can't imagine what it's like to be 16, 17, 18, 19 and seeing what our world is doing and not doing, and to feel like you want to even be a part of it because it's so hard and it's so frustrating. So just talk to people, take care of yourself, take a break, step away from social media if you have to, just take care of you, because it's a really hard time right now to be young and to see what's happening. And so just take care, whatever that looks like for you.
Thank you. Rima?
Yeah, it's a combination of all. As Sue said, follow your dreams. I'm the only non-doctor in my family, in my siblings, did not want to go that way. Go where your passion takes you, because if you don't, it's going to be even a bigger hurdle to succeed. And I would say, remember, you are strong. You have that strength within you. And when someone does tell you no, it's not just a maybe. Also examine where they're coming from. Where are they? Why are they saying no? Do they actually have your best interest at heart? Are they misinformed? Or why are they saying that no? That's pretty important to know. And do remember, your success actually is important, not just to you personally, but to the community at large, whether it's our community and the community at large, because we bring change, we bring improvements to the world we're in. And don't forget the people who have helped you get there and the people who need your help. I mean, that is really important. Nobody's ever, ever, ever too busy to actually go and help somebody, or volunteer in our community, or help the hungry, help the needy, help the sick, or help bring change. None of us are too busy for that. I don't care if you have 6, 8, or 2 kids, full-time job or not. There is always, and you should make time for that, because it's good for your soul too. So that's my advice.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Nafisa? Nafisa, you're on mute.
I assume as soon as I start talking, it'll unmute me, but I think technology is not there yet. I'm a mom to 3 boys, and I teach them that the future is female and that girls rock. And that comes from because my grandmother raised me with the idea there's nothing that I can't conquer. To our youngers out there, especially youth that are Muslim and also youth that are Muslim and Black, I want to say there's nothing that you can't do, and there's nothing that you can overcome. And if your dream is to be in politics, do it. And if the first person or the second person you talk to tries to talk you up, just keep persevering and pushing through. Because there will be, you know, I said, I talked to Muhammad and Wajdi, and I was not saying MET is involved. Wajdi as an individual and Muhammad as an individual, not the organizations they work for. I was saying I was lucky that the first two people I talked to, you know, were like, you are doing it. You're not going to go back. You're going to, you know, this is it. So if you're not, if the first person, because we're not all that lucky, I understand, just keep pushing. And your passion is your passion. Nobody can define that for you. You can only know that. And, you know, there will be chatters out there, people who will say something, people who will come tell you that something. Don't listen to it. Just push and always keep your eyes on your goals, not somebody else's goal. Whatever your dream is whatever your dream is. That's what I would say.
Can I add one thing to that? It's okay if your dream changes. So I have been a teacher, I've worked in HR, I've worked in marketing, now I'm a politician. So don't feel like it matters if you decided that now I'm going to be an actress, right? So you can have goals, stack goals, go for the goals, and be ready to pivot if you want to, and that's okay as well.
Yeah, no, totally. I think, you know, can I just share one thing with 2 seconds? When I was, you know, I came from the blood bank industry and then went to public health, and it's very very talkative field, right? And my first job with the local county health department, I was pretty quiet. And in meetings, you know, here I was in somewhat of a leadership role, and people were expecting me to add on. And when people talked, I would always, you know, nod my head. I agree with Sue, I agree with Rima, you know. And then when people ask me, hey, Nafisa, do you have something? Or do you want to say something? I would always say, no, I agreed with Rima. She really had a good point, and move on. And I would get mentored on the side after the meetings or after that project, how I should contribute to that, how I should talk. And one of the lessons I took away was that I needed to not that I needed to become somebody else. I just needed to level up to where the environment that I was in. So to make myself be able to survive in that environment, one thing I did is I went home and Googled how to be better at presenting, literally, because part of my job also was becoming a trainer for 1,500 employees, and I was not comfortable. I'm introverted naturally person. And one thing I did to overcome that fear and to be, you know, to continue to have my job and to continue to grow professionally, I Googled how to become better. And one of the things that came up, a few things came up. Two things that resonated with me was Toastmaster, which I enrolled immediately. And then the second thing that came was improv, which I enrolled immediately. I did improv and I did stand-up comedy and I did Toastmaster. And people would never, you know, like, because I'm introverted, I never exude those kind of environment, you know, like those kind of aura, right? But it's okay to make yourself adapt to your environment, is what I want to say. You know, a lot of Muslim, like especially to girls, one thing I want to, and the reason why I said this, a lot of girls experience hardship wearing hijab publicly, and I do not want them to take off their hijab to make their environment. Keep who you are, but if your environment demands you to talk more or to be expressive or to be good at presenting, to be good at training, to be good at talking to people, to be good at delegating, go get those skills. But don't fundamentally change who you are, especially your religion and how you present yourself as a whole.
Thank you. These are some very important and great suggestions and advice. I do see that Brother Mohammed is back with us, and he does have any questions. Also to the audience, if you do have any questions, please type them in the chat box, and we will definitely get them to our panelists. Mohammed?
Thank you so much. I apologize for the earlier technical issues. It's been a beautiful panel so far, and the questions are amazing. Thank you for that. And my only question really is a follow-up to one of the questions is, what do you advise current first-generation parents as to accepting their children's wishes for being the narrative tellers of our communities? We want engineers and doctors, of course, but we also want, like you said earlier, actors, poets, screenplay writers. But how do you convince the parents that this is something that's going to help spread the narrative or tell our story, how much like other immigrant communities' story was told over the years?
Is that to me or?
Yeah.
We'll start with you because you're the media mogul here.
Oh, no, I'm not a media mogul. But yeah, no, the parents, I don't have children, so I don't know if I'm the right one to speak. I just feel though, understand that your children are not going to want some, well, you know what? This is going to be, I kind of get out of the way is what I'm trying to say. Figure out how you can support them and not be obstacles. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that looks like. All I know is sometimes the parents are sometimes can be an obstacle, and I really shouldn't say anymore.
I can interject.
That could be another topic, and then
Totally,
I definitely invite Sue for that. Hossein, go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Sue. I think you said it perfectly. I mean, really, in a nutshell, you want to let the parents know not to be obstacles because they are going to thwart their children from really doing amazing things. But I think, part of what we have to do is just to piggyback off of what Rima shared before is about trying to understand why they have those fears or maybe why they are standing in your way. Empathy works. Empathy is a very powerful tool. And I think if we start from a place of empathy, then you can create spaces of conversation and of dialogue and of mutual understanding and respect. But if there's no empathy, and it's generationally, this is what's happening in this culture, right? They've created this rift, a generational rift, where children or youth are taught to see authority as being completely on the other side, don't even bother. They have these horrible even memes, okay, boomer, like whatever, very cynical, very just trivializing parental authority, trivializing all authority. And it's a culture of disrespect. You can look at Dr. Leonard Sax's material. He has extensive content about how this is permeated throughout America. We have to do better and not let that in any way come into our community. Respect is part of Islam. As we know, Birrul Walidain is essential to our creedal understanding of faith. So we have to empower youth to know that dialogue is how you get your parents to understand. And so when I've actually worked with families where we do I will counsel an entire family together and teach the parents to listen and respect their youth, because in Islam, children have rights. I know, shocker to some of our cultures, but that children have rights and that you have to respect youth. I mean, if you look at in Islam, a child, when they hit puberty, they are adults essentially. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins to, at that point, they're held accountable, right? So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is letting us know that in that transition of childhood to adolescence, that they have the ability to discern, that they have the ability, cognitive abilities. And sure, there's other developmental stuff that still is coming, but there is that confidence, vote of confidence in a way, right? That now you can make some decisions and that you do have this, you should be treated not like a child, in other words. Then we as parents have to do the same and not talk down to our children and not have this authoritarian model of parenting where it's like my way or the highway. This is totally against the prophetic model of parenting in it. So when I do parenting classes, I'm always trying to tell the parents, you actually have to get out of your cultural mindset, because cultures have destroyed this concept and have created really, in many ways, this rift between the generations. But Islam honors children. So restore that balance, be emotionally intelligent in the way that you communicate with your children, with your teens, with your youth, understand them from where they're coming from, and then watch it'll reciprocate, so that when they are in those moments or really critical points in their life where they're making major life decisions, because you handled them with gentleness and care and respect, they're going to come to you and actually listen to your opinion and take your guidance. But if you destroy that relationship early on, then sure, it's just going to extend into adulthood and they won't listen to you. So if you want, because every parent, I mean, I'm a parent, I have 2 boys, most of you who've spoken, you've shared also that you're parents, you know that your hope is that they will always be in your life and that you will always have a tether, some emotional tether to them that lets them know that you are a unit, and inshallah that you are a safe space for them. But we can't establish that if we're going to disrespect them and treat them horribly. So I'm very big on focusing on getting the parents to know that that you have to essentially respect your kids and learn how to do that if you don't. And also to know that your fear of them maybe not succeeding as well because they don't go into medicine or law or some other high, white collar profession is misplaced, because rizq is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's the only one who determines it. So you see many people who go into those paths and they may be financially successful, but they're spiritually completely devoid. They've lost, they're maybe, they're engaged in other things. They've just basically spiraled, but they might have material success. Is that what you want? No, you want your kids to be whole, to be sound, to be of strong character, and the material success is from Allah. So work on establishing a connection and relationship with them, that is what you're cultivating, and let the rizq, inshallah, just tawakkal ala Allah, of course, guide them, but do it with respect, not with why are you doing that? That's ridiculous. Don't do that. And crushing their spirits, crushing their dreams. This is totally antithetical to Islam, and not from in any way. You won't find a single tradition where the Prophet ﷺ, and there's actually hadith where people say he never dashed the hopes of anyone. That is the hadith, that the Prophet ﷺ never dashed the hopes of anybody. So we have to remind parents, don't dash your children's hopes, encourage them, guide them with gentleness if you feel that they really are going on a trajectory that might not be for their betterment, but certainly don't crush their spirits. So I think that the focus has to be, on the parents, and then for the kids, again, don't adopt Western attitudes about parental authority. Islam is very clear. Bir al-walidain is part of our faith. Respect, speak with respect, and you'll get treated with respect, inshallah.
I'd like to add something to that as well. I think also based on that fear, it's a fear of what success looks like. So breaking down, what does success look like? What does success look like for a family? Is it financial? Is it spiritual health? Is it mental health? Is it a combination? And I think the other angle of this, and this is me, I'm putting on my HR hat. I've worked in HR for 4 years. Doctors and engineers are really awesome, but there are tons of booming industries right now that are not doctors and they are not engineers. And they are data analytics people. And then there's politicians. So I think when someone says, I don't want you to be this thing that you want to be, we have to sit down and say, well, where is that coming from? Why are you saying that? You can make a living doing this. You can make a living doing this. And so starting to break down some of those sort of unknowns for people. I know when I wanted to be a teacher forever, and my mom said no, bless her heart. And was trying to break down her own understanding of how my life could be limited if I was a teacher, and helping her understand that it's actually not so bad if I was a teacher. And so just really also realizing that the careers that exist today, I remember being 21 and being wait, you're an actor, how do you make money, right? But you can actually make a really good living doing a lot of careers that our parents don't think are and again, are real. And so really re-examining what success looks like, but also re-examining what are careers now, because I think there's also this really big misunderstanding around how much, not that money matters, but if that's what's inspiring this conversation, what financial success a person can have in a non-doctor or non-engineer field. So I think there's a lot of knowledge and education and opportunity. And I would, as Sue said, get out of the way. And thank you for sharing that, Hosai. I didn't know, this idea that children can choose. And of course, I know that we'll always support our children, but really breaking down what that fear is and what that fear is stemming from, and understanding and educating ourselves, because there are lots of people today that make really good living, and they're not doctors and they're not engineers, and I love all of them.
Yeah, Nadia, I mean, that's one of the things I've been, probably the most humbling experiences has been me being a mom. I have a 19-year-old and a 15-year-old, and learning to listen to them, because they are surprisingly able to know what they need and what they need to succeed, whatever their what is something successful to, what success looks to me may not mean what success looks to them, but they know where their passion are, and you need that to succeed in whatever you need to do. So listen to them. They are, they're full humans. I mean, they know themselves and what they can do and what they can't, more than we do in some ways. And then remember, for the people who've put aside their dreams to raise their families and provide for them, like my dad and others, and my mom, think about what it meant to give up those dreams and not even try to go for them. And, you might be an 80-year-old at this point going, if only I tried, if only I went that route. So, remember those and give your child opportunity to maybe, and maybe they try it and they don't succeed, whatever that looks like, but at least they tried. And, we all love Gibran, your kids are not your kids. They are the kids, of the future. They know more. They have different loves and careers and opportunities, and their vision is greater than ours. My vision is limited, right, on what is a professional career like. Theirs is not. They're just starting out. And remember that. And that's how we get great, amazing advancement, is by the youth imagining things we can't even imagine. So remember that when you're advising them and talking to them and parenting them.
Nafisa?
My mom taught herself how to read and write a few words, and on top of that, she taught herself math, and she was an amazing mathematician. She could add and multiply crazy numbers in her head and just spit out the correct answers. And we would play with her and test her by having a calculator. So when my mom told me, because when I went to community college, I was like, I'm going to be a writer. And my mom told me that, how am I going to make money? That was her first reaction. And then I changed my mind, and I learned that I could actually become an astronomist. And my brother was like, astaghfirullah, you're going to get into a interesting territory between religion and where this and that. So, so I think families know you, your parents know you, and will have the best intentions at heart. But also know the journey your parents have been. If your parents haven't, this is what they're used to, or this is what they've been shown to, that to get to where you want to go, where you're economically secure, is you have to become a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer. Then just have that conversation. I really like what Hosai was saying around, have a conversation and have that dialogue with your parents. I always say that I was pushed into the health field, but I'm a firm believer that by volunteering for public health, I fell in love, this field I'm in, and got myself in the blood banking field, that side of the health field. So I think you'll find what you love, and just have be graceful with your parents, and also know that your parents are also navigating uncharted waters. We're in a new country and new place, and depending on the journey your parents have been on, some careers are going to be a hard pill to swallow than others. But ultimately, I think if you are engaged with your parents, you'll figure out what your passion is, and you'll get. And I also believe in guidance and consoling with people. And I think our religion also encourages to console with people and to be in counseling, to be in counsel. I forget the hadith, but I'm sure Hosai, but to console with others in whatever you're trying to do, so that you get advice and guidance. So,
do you mean shura, Nafisa?
Yeah,
Shura?
I believe that's what,
Yeah.
These are also excellent advice for not just for parents as well, but for us, for the younger generation as well, to be able to understand their parents, especially if we are coming, if our parents are coming from a different background than us, then it makes us easy to understand what their journey was. And it's also important for us to talk to our parents as well and learn their stories and their journeys, so that we are empathetic and compassionate. Mohammed, do you have a question?
No, go ahead.
Well, so we are reaching towards the end of our program. We are actually a little bit over our allotted time. Really appreciate everybody taking time from your busy schedules, and especially on a weekend when it is your family time. Really appreciate. I just have one last question, and it is basically: is there a message to the Muslim community that you have in about 30 seconds each? And we'll start off with Nafisa.
Pay attention to politics, especially local politics. That's where it matters most, and this is how your life is drastically impacted. I'm not saying national politics doesn't matter, but local politics matters. And find out who's running, especially in the community. If you see a Hassan name out there, she's Muslim. If you're in Multnomah County, Rima Ganjoor, she's the only Muslim person running in that race, and will be, one of the first women elected as a Muslim woman. So I would say pay attention to politics. And I know at 30 seconds, I don't know why I get on that. It's been a long campaign season. I apologize for talking too long, but pay attention to politics, and also contribute your hard-earned money to these. Politics is not cheap, and everything costs. So donate.
Rima?
I'm going to sort of echo Nafisa a little bit. What happens on a national level affects us on a greater picture, but what happens locally, what happens when you have somebody who is making your local rules, or doing judging a dispute you have, those affect everyday life, and your vote actually means more. Again, people complain like, oh, I'm one person. What can that matter? And actually in the local races, 1 or 2 votes could win a race. So very important to do that. And part of supporting our community and supporting our vision and wanting to shatter these stereotypes around what it means to be a Muslim, what it means to be a Muslim woman, what do all these things mean, and why, and allowing us to be in that public square so we can present and represent is really important. And so that support and the attention, and not just to us Muslim, there are so many other races that will affect the daily life of every one of you. Look, learn. This is one of the biggest privileges. Like, we don't have it everywhere. I lived in Iraq. We didn't have the right to vote there. This is an important right, and work hard to protect it and work hard to actually exercise it. You know, that is one of the things you can do to improve everybody's life around you.
Thank you, Nadia.
Thank you. I think, you know, my message I would echo both what Rima and Nafisa said. I would say just be involved in your community, whatever that looks like, right? Show up to things, whether it's being involved with your mosque, whether it's being involved with a culturally specific organization. You know, I think a lot of us are inspired to run because we're starting to see the impact of people like us not being in office. But start paying attention, like what are the things that are happening in your city, in your state that affect different groups of people? And are there voices that maybe aren't being heard because they have been kicked out of the rooms? And so the only way to know whether the voices are being heard is to be involved. So be civically involved, go to a meeting. You can make a public comment at a city council meeting, at a board meeting, at a county commissioner meeting. You have rights to be involved in whatever way you want to be. So use your power to be involved, use your power to vote, and use your power to give if you are able to, whether it's donating to campaigns, donating to MET, donating in whatever way you can, time, money, love, share a Facebook post of someone that you support. Those little things, they do matter and they do make a difference.
Thank you. Sue?
Yeah, I really was going to say vote. I really was. And so it's very consistent. Politics starts at the local level. That's how other communities got where they are. And so absolutely get involved, vote, don't sit it out.
Thank you. Before I asked Sister Hosai to give her final message, actually, we do have a couple of questions for Sister Hosai, and that's why I skipped over there is a question regarding who are some of the Muslim female scholars, and if there are any Islamic or Muslim seminaries that you would recommend, and how to uplift your spiritual life. Actually, this question could go for everybody, but I'll start off with Sister Hosai in the interest of time right now. So these are a few of the questions.
Sure. Jazakallah khairan for whoever asked that question, because it gives me an opportunity to, again, shed light on some of the amazing women that are in our community as female scholars and who are working. I work with an organization here that's based in the Bay Area called the Rahma Foundation, and it is a women-led initiative, and they do exactly what I'm talking about. They produce female scholars. Their entire platform is about bringing female teachers from all over the world, wherever they are, together. They create programs for female scholars to teach on various topics, not only women-centric topics, but on fiqh commentary, on tafsir, on hadith, on everything that you can think of, seerah. So we've done many programs with them. They also have programs that are for young girls. So from a young age all the way through adults or teen, pre-college, preteen, young professionals. They have programs and halaqas that are for that, for those age ranges. Amazing programs. But I personally know several amazing Muslim female scholars here based in the U.S. People that come to mind right away. The founder, one of the founders of the Rahma Foundation, of course, is Dr. Rania Awad, who is a psychiatrist who practices. She's a Stanford graduate psychiatrist. She also runs the Khalil Center, which is a spiritual Islamic counseling service center that's based here in California, but its flagship, I believe, is in Chicago. They have offices or clinics everywhere. She's a phenomenal leader in our community. MashaAllah, may Allah increase her and reward her. She's also a good friend of mine. I work with her on several projects. There's Sheikha Muslima Permal, who is based in Southern California. She co-runs the Majlis, which is with her husband, who is also a Sheikh Jamal Diwan, but she is an amazing example. She's an Azhar graduate, and she's just done so much for our community. She's a chaplain. She works a lot with youth and with families. We have Zainab Ansari, who's with Taysir, which is in the East Coast. Of course, Dr. Ingrid Mattson. I mean, there's a lot of names that are coming to me, but just, those are the ones that I can keep. Oh, of course, Dr. Tamara Gray, who runs rabata.org. And I can, once I get into the comment section, I can provide the links to these organizations if I'm going too fast. But there are several really empowering, amazing female scholars, again, in our community right here, homegrown. Some of them are converts, some of them have studied abroad. Most of them actually have studied abroad. But those are the ones that come to mind. So I highly encourage supporting those initiatives. As far as the second question about how to enhance one's spiritual I think life was it it's a very very I think we need a whole program on that, but I think when you have mentorship is a very big part of our faith. Mentorship is a real thing, but we have sort of lost that in our community. We kind of just throw our kids in Sunday schools and expect the teachers to do it all, or we don't do that at all and we just think they're going to figure things out. And so there's a lot of youth that are struggling to learn in a way that's natural, and in a way that is really it's how it should be, because we are a deen of Jama'ah. Everything in our deen we do together. We pray together, we fast together, we go to Hajj together. So growing spiritually is something that you do together. And that's why having halaqas, having support groups, having places where you can actually learn is essential. Trying to take this deen on your own 2020 in the US when you're in the middle of culture wars and identity politics is a recipe for disaster. And that's exactly why you see a lot of youth struggling with their faith identities, because this culture is very strong and it's very intoxicating and it's very powerful. And unless we give them the tools and the guidance and have people who are available for them, I work with teens, and I think one of the saddest things that I hear from them is that the adults in their life are kind of they're disappointed because they're not always available. And so for the parents and the people of my generation, we have to really look at what are we doing. When we go to events, for example, and we're having like in the Pakistani culture, they'll have dawats, which are just big, like, dinner parties or really, like festive sort of occasions for whatever. But if you're bringing large groups of people together, families together, and then you're dividing all the groups. And so all the kids are in some playroom and all the teens are, kind of doing their own thing, and the adults are having their own conversations. That is also part of the problem. This isolation or this peer, separating people based on peer groups and kind of shushing the kids away. You're too loud, go away, go away. That needs to stop. We need to invite our youth and our children into those spaces with us, so that when we're talking about big topics, they're not left out, in the cold, so to speak, but they're actually respected, and we want to hear from them, engage them in conversation. So you can do that on a large level in that setting, but also in your homes. The dinner table should be a place of discourse. It should be a place where you're engaging their minds and you're talking to them, you're paying attention. You're not just sitting on your phone or constantly, again, shushing them or sending them to their rooms, or everybody's in their silos in the house. So we have to do a much better job of supporting one another in many things, but especially in our spiritual journeys. And that can't be done if we're all fragmented and just kind of doing our own thing and separated. So bring the Jama'ah back. Praying together is essential in every home. That's my hope, that all the Muslim families, that's a priority, that when you pray with your family. It's not that, I'm going to pray in my room and I'm going to eat here by myself in my bedroom and everybody just sort of, again, separate. Have a culture or rules in the home that just bring people together, and you will see that as you proceed in your spiritual path, if you're ahead of your kids, which inshallah we hope that we are, because we can guide them better, that they can accompany us, and then we can also teach them and have a renewed view. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I love to teach young children, because part of the reality I see is that adults, we've lost the awe. We've lost awe that children naturally have. And when you're around children, Nadia may be able to relate because you're also a teacher. That's what I love, is that they see the world with this lens of hope, of beauty, of subhanallah in its real, sincere form. Whereas we've become jaded and cynical and just, the world is this heavy place and we're too burdened by bills and problems. And so it really does help to actually bring the groups together and to not gentrify the families or these groups that I don't think it's helping us. So inshallah, I hope that's the best answer I can come up with in the few minutes that I have. And I'm sorry for going over. I didn't mean to over.
Jazakumullah khair. I actually have a question for Sue. and it is about what does it take to be an intern at Impact Hollywood. And
Oh, wow. Yeah. Thank you. You know, we do have an internship program for Hollywood and government. Right now with the quarantine and the lockdown, we're not doing it this year, but generally it'll be on our website. So go to impact.org for internship opportunities. But honestly, this year, I think it's just we're on pause right now. Impact.org.
Exactly, but this shows that our youth is interested in this field as well, and they are just looking for representation. They know that there is somebody there, then we do have an opportunity to come in to this field as well. And when they look at successful women, Muslim women as you, Sue, then they are they can convince their families, and they can convince themselves that they can do it.
Yeah, and if people do want to email me in between, it's hollywooddirector@impact.org.
Yeah.
hollywooddirector@impact.org, and just keep watching our website to see if anything changes this year, but it's really going to be difficult.
I totally understand, but thank you.
Sure,
I
thank you.
greatly appreciate. I want to thank my co-moderator, Mohammed. In a great fashion of us women, we just put him to the side, but with all due respect, Mohammed. I want to thank Brother Wajdi, Sister Sahar, and Brother Jawad. These are the three main forces behind who invited all these amazing women here. And I want to thank all of you guys for coming here, Mohammed. I hope.
I'm extremely honored, and it's a pleasure to be even just listening to this panel. So I appreciate everyone's giving their true transparency as far as their thoughts and feelings. And again, keep leading, and I'm inspired. And I wish I had daughters so they can look up to you and do the same thing that you're all doing. So.
And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide all of our children to be inspired by the strength of you and all the other Muslims that are representing Islam in such a positive way. With this, I'd like to close this event, and hope to see everybody soon, inshallah.
Thank you. Nice meeting everyone. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Nice meeting you as well. Jazakumullah. Brother Wajdi. Barakallahu feekum. And all of you. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Assalamu alaikum.